Lawyers Guild and the ACLU, which drafted the crowd control policy. This incident the crowd control case began on April 7th, 2003. Just curious, how many of you were there at the Port of Oakland at that time? Okay. Well, then you know that the Oakland Police Department opened fire on completely nonviolent demonstrators with an array of less than lethal weapons, including grenade launchers, which are used in prisons in ADSEG, because I've done prison work, rubber bullets, dowels. I don't even remember all the different weapons that were used. Nearly 50 people were shot, including longshoremen who were waiting to go to work that day. And one of them was severely injured in his finger. We had people go to the hospital. We had a woman who had 2 operations who was doing nothing but holding a picket sign. So, like with the Riders case, we told them we needed a policy. We needed a crowd control policy so this wouldn't happen again. And I think you know the end game to that story, but let me tell you the beginning and the middle. The crowd control policy has a number of facets to it, and that also can be found online. I found it in a Google search within about a minute, and I am not tech savvy. So I think it's pretty well available. I think it's on the National Lawyers Guild site, to just cite one example. I just want to read a couple of things from the crowd control policy that involves what happened recently here in Oakland. It talks specifically about less than lethal weapons, and it says, less than lethal weapons are only supposed to be used against individuals who are engaged in conduct that poses an immediate threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury to themselves or others when other means of arrest are unsafe, or who is engaging in substantial destruction of property which creates an imminent risk to the lives or safety of other persons, and when the individual can be targeted without endangering other crowd members or bystanders. The policy specifically states that less than lethal weapons may never be used indiscriminately against a crowd or group of persons, even if some members of the crowd or group are violent or disruptive. In other words, there's no excuse for shooting nonviolent protesters just because they happen to be near a violent act, and the police are prohibited from shooting into a crowd unless people's lives are in imminent danger. Clearly, that part of the policy was violated on October 25th, 2011, and numerous times thereafter. The policy also deals with chemical agents, and it says, and I quote, chemical agents can produce fatalities, serious injuries, or even death. The elderly person or infant in the crowd or the individual with asthma or other breathing disorders may have a fatal reaction to chemical agents, even when those chemical agents are used in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations and the department's training. Gas is only to be used when other police techniques have failed, such as encirclement and police formations, and after clearly audible warnings have been given. The policy specifically calls for OPD to have medical personnel on site when gas is used, and that they should make provision for decontamination and medical screening to those persons affected by chemical agents. They signed this, and it's a federal court order. Now, needless to say, these policies were repeatedly violated in the Occupy Oakland demonstrations. Protesters were shot with less than lethal weapons who were doing nothing more than photographing the police. People were shot because of other people's actions, and even those actions did not authorize the use of less than lethal weapons. Gas was used without adequate warnings, and sometimes with no warnings at all. And not only was there no adequate OPD medical staff on site, in some cases such as Scott Olson, people who tried to give medical aid were themselves gassed by the police. The failure of the OPD to honor their own agreement in the April 7th is similar to their failure to honor their commitment in the Riders case. Our lawsuit empowered our clients to some degree, and none of us have ever told us they regretted it. Nevertheless, the fact remains that the OPD has failed to honor its commitment to their own agreements and 2 federal court orders. While officials at the University of California at Davis and Berkeley, no matter what we may think of their failings, have apologized for the conduct of their police and even more offered to drop criminal charges against the protesters. Officials in Oakland have refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing whatsoever, and instead have singled out conduct they dislike while failing to acknowledge their own wrongdoing. Excuse me. City officials have complained about Occupy Oakland demonstrations, taking the police away from fighting crime, yet they're the ones who filled the jails at Santa Rita and the courthouses with cases, most of which they are not going to win. They have complained about the cost of the demonstrations, yet KTVU, a local station here, recently did a study about the amount of lawsuits paid out for police misconduct cases in the last 11 years. Third was San Jose with $2.8 million. Second was San Francisco with $8.6 million. And first was Oakland with $57 million paid out in police misconduct cases. That's KTVU, the local Fox affiliate study of what's happening. The city's refusal to acknowledge any responsibility for the predicament they find themselves in is not constructive and will not be helpful to themselves or the people of Oakland. No matter what the truth against individual demonstrators, it is a basic human right, an American right, even in Oakland, to go to a political demonstration and not expect to be injured or arrested because of the actions of someone else. Once you accept the premise you can arrest, beat, or gas someone because of the actions of someone else, you cease to believe in any principles behind our Constitution and our right of citizens to demand redress for their grievances. We as lawyers recognize that we can in no way substitute for the you organizing movements across this country. Yet we will do everything we can to hold the City of Oakland accountable for the widespread abuse of their civil rights against members of their own community and the Occupy movement.